Hello. Hello. Yeah, good, super. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Hmm? Yeah, 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 sure. Good evening, everybody. Request you all to settle down, find a comfortable place to sit. Request, please keep your phones on a switched off mode, airplane mode, whatever works. Good evening, one and all. It gives me immense joy to welcome you all on behalf of CEO's Club Bangalore chapter. We've gathered here as part of our knowledge series initiative for a fireside chat titled In Conversation. Rajesh, you want to?
Thanks, Anup. Good evening. I see a few empty chairs still. We're expecting a full house, and I'm sure everyone is following Indian Standard Time. And we will have a full house to our speakers. So welcome everyone to the CEO Clubs of India, Bangalore chapter. Like Anup mentioned, this is our knowledge series event. We do this a couple of times a year, and we invite eminent speakers to come and spend the evening with us. As the club name suggests, CEO Club, meaning we are a bunch of CEOs. And we still have a lot to learn, and that's what this event is all about. In addition to just our members in the Bangalore chapter, we've invited a few guests, and I do see a number of new faces, few familiar faces who are also guests, and thank you all for joining us, and some of them are prospective members for us. So for those guests, please do spend time with our fellow Bangalore chapter members, get to know us. It'll be great to welcome you into the club in the future if you decide to join us. It's been a great experience over the last few years since we started this. It's been really worth the time and the effort, at least I've spent into this exciting club, and welcome, and thank you for joining. I know it's not exactly easy circumstances to have an in-person meeting, and we have postponed it, this particular event few times. We finally decided to have this. As you can see, we've got a pretty big ballroom so that you can maintain social distancing. And I do encourage everyone to wear masks, although we've asked all the attendees to show up here if you're vaccinated. And so you can be assured that I think everyone should be vaccinated here. So let me run through the agenda for the evening. And one thing I forgot to mention, we are streaming this event, and we have members from our other chapters across the country watching this. Hopefully we have quite a few online as well. And one thing I would like to assure our guests here who are going to speak tonight, that this is going to be extremely confidential, and the discussion will be observed. No information will go out of these four walls and the streaming link that our other members are watching. And confidentiality is a cornerstone of our club, and we stand for confidentiality. So please don't hesitate to be candid and share your true thoughts with us this evening. So let me quickly run through the agenda for the evening. We're going to kickstart with the fireside chat with our guest speaker. And I'm really excited to hear the conversation. We have two great people here that I'll shortly introduce. After the fireside chat, we will talk briefly about the CEO clubs, very briefly, a couple of minutes. And Yash, our ex-president, is going to talk about the CEO club so that you understand who we are, what we do, and if you would like to join us, what the process would be. And following that, the real fun part, we have cocktails and dinner. And I want everyone to relax, Enjoy the evening. I know most of you have not been out in a while, so this would be a great evening, great weather, and we'll open the outside up also. So please do spend as much time as you can. And if you're worried about curfew, I've been out and about in the evenings late quite a bit over the last month. Theoretically, there's a curfew, but practically there's nobody who's stopping you, so don't worry too much about getting home late. So that's about the evening, and hope to see you and talk to most of you, all the guests that we've invited. I'm going to start off right away by introducing first someone that I know very well, and who is going to be the moderator for the evening today, Shraddha Sharma. She's the founder and chief editor of Your Story. She's also part of the Kalari family. She has taken money from us, so she becomes part of the family. No pressure, Shraddha. We're looking for big return. She conveniently missed the returns part. But it makes me really proud to see her climb to new heights every single day. That the journey that we've been with her for a few years now. As a company name suggests, Shraddha lives her life in stories and believes every story is unique and every story matters, which is a very, very unique perspective that she brings to the journalism part. She has many accolades and recognitions, too many to list in the interest of time. I'm going to skip all that. Prior to starting Your Story in 2008, she was an accomplished journalist with the Times of India Group and CNBC TV 18. Coming back to Your Story, I'll read a paragraph from her website. She thinks I don't do all these things. I do read portfolio company websites. What started as a small but robust group founded by Shraddha Sharma in 2008 has now grown by leaps and bounds, and yet it revels in its childlike enthusiasm about the ecosystem every single day. Our content across text, video, and social media is positive, vibrant, celebratory, even analytical, but never cynical. It reflects who we are, the best storytellers in the country, and who doesn't love a good story? That so well describes and defines Your Story as a company, but Shraddha as well. She has that childlike enthusiasm, positive outlook on life, and a great storytelling ability. So who better to host our guest, Mr. Bakshi, this evening than Shraddha? Thank you, Shraddha. We appreciate you for taking out this evening to help us host Mr. Bakshi. Please, I'll invite you to the dais first, women first. So coming to our guest of honor, it gives me immense pleasure in introducing our esteemed guest and speaker for the evening, Mr. Subrata Bakshi. We are blessed in India with so many accomplished people in business, philanthropy, literature, etc. But you will rarely find a person with abilities like Mr. Bakshi. From being a world-class entrepreneur to best-selling author to being a public servant and a great philanthropist, he has done it all with class and humility. We all know him as the co-founder of Mindtree and a best-selling business author. But it's interesting, the interesting tidbit that I learned that his work life started as a clerk in the industries department of the government of Odisha in 1976. He didn't have much technology background, but he joined the tech industry. I'm sure the heart and passion he still has today, I'm sure he had that being younger, much more. and I'm sure he talked his way into the computer industry. And from 1981 to 1999, he worked for a variety of organizations in sales, marketing, and operations. His longest stint was at Wipro, where he became the chief executive of Wipro's global R&D before working for Chairman Azim Premji as corporate vice president, mission quality. He started his entrepreneurial journey in 1999. He co-founded Mindtree along with 9 other co-founders. Today, Mindtree is over $1 billion global IT services company with over 20,000 people. In 2016, the Chief Minister of Odisha invited Subrata to the full-time role of Chairman, Odisha Skill Development Authority, in the rank and status of a cabinet minister. This role still keeps him busy till date. He and his writer wife, Susmita, support the cause for the prevention of blindness, geriatric care, and mental health and school education, towards which they have pledged their personal resources and time. And I'm sure many of you have seen news stories about Mr. Bagchi and his wife contributing a lot of their wealth to great causes. Subrata is also on the board of White Swan Foundation. White Swan Foundation for Mental Health is a not-for-profit organization that offers knowledge services in the area of mental health. Mr. Bagchi is a well-known writer. I think that's his true passion. He has some bestsellers. I'm sure most of you have read his books or have at least heard of his books. Books like The High Performance Entrepreneur, Go Kiss the World, The Professional, MBA at 16, and many other books. His latest book, Sell, received the C.K. Prahalad Award for the Best Business Book of 2018. His books have been translated into all major Indian languages as well as Chinese and Korean. Bagchi has served on the boards of IIM Bangalore, Indian Oil, IIT Bhubaneswar, and he now serves on the board of governors of the Software Technology Parks of India. It's our proud privilege and my privilege to have you amongst us, Mr. Bagchi. Thank you for being here, and please join Shraddha on the stage. I think you can sit in the center. Yeah, center is good for Mr. Bagchi and for you. You are our chief guest. So good. I mean, that may seem like long intros, but believe me, I could have done it for half an hour with both these great people here on the stage. So we will let Shraddha take the stage, and hopefully we'll all enjoy the great conversation between Shraddha and Mr. Bagchi. And at the end, if you do have time, Shraddha, let's open the floor for the audience to ask him some questions. So let's get on with the program. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Rajesh. He introduced us, so how can he get away after introducing? Let me also introduce him from my perspective. So for this event, he just sent me an SMS and said, there's this amazing club of which he's looking at this year, and you have to moderate a session. And then, of course, as he rightly said, he's my investor. So what do you say? So I thought that let me ignore it. Let's ignore. Then he got his assistant to call and say that, okay, you have to moderate this session and all that. And I was like thinking again, let's ignore, because investors are saying then you really want to ignore. And then after that, he told me that you have to moderate Subrata Bagchi. Then I said, okay, immediately I agreed. And because it's a great honor to be, it's a privilege. And I think for us, it's once in a lifetime kind of moments, every moment that you get to interact with Mr. Bagchi. And I said, of course, yes. And Rajesh, I have to also tell that I think we in the country, in the startup ecosystem, need more people like you as investors, because you're chilled out, you're cool, you're not stuck up, though you're in suit, and you're a nice, genuinely nice guy. So I don't want to talk about your accomplishments, because as a person, you have very, very nice, and that's what matters. And I can't talk about Mr. Bagchi's accomplishments because Rajesh has covered a lot of it, but I really want to set the context that it was 8 or 9 years back, actually 9 years, 9 years back, that I had the chance of meeting Mr. Bagchi, and that too through a girl who was writing a book called Captainship, and you know, she said, oh, I have interviewed these people, and I said, oh, can you get me an introduction with Mr. Bagchi? And then I just moved to Bangalore 10 years back, and it was my first year. Nobody knew me, I knew no one, and she said, okay, let me try. I'll try. And I was just, you know, that time when you have, you know, no one, then you pray that, okay, it happens. And I still remember that first time I met Mr. Bagchi in the Mindtree office, and it was a very big moment for me because, you know, it is still a very big moment for me, but at that time it was a very, very big moment for me because, you know, I had read his book and everything, but you go and talk to him. And what I clearly remember, and then those moments matter because nobody wants you to be, you know, people like him have his calendar, and that he told me, by the way, that his calendar is booked till October. You know, you have your schedule and way of running things. So I knew how important that meeting was. But what I remember is that that time I was very depressed in my life. I had gone through a personal tragedy, and somewhere you just don't know what's the right way to behave and what is the right way to conduct yourself. But I was grieving, and I was grieving miserably and terribly. And talking to him somehow, you know, it gave me that assurance because somewhere there was a part of something in his story which he vulnerably told me, and somewhere it healed me in the process more than going to psychiatrist and therapist because it helped me. I needed that somewhere assurance and consoling, and then he made my suffering and emotional you know, madness of that time that it's okay. Like, you know, and I'm special and it is okay. And people don't do that. To me, leaders and people, now, you know, of course, all of us like me because I go and meet Prime Minister, I meet everyone. Everyone gives me meetings these days. God is kind. But that moment, the meeting that he gave me, the conversation that he had, and you know, he would have done it with many people, but it held me. It held me for many, many years to go through that personal crisis. And then for me, he will always hold. I always give that reference that he said that your pain and your suffering makes you empathetic. I told you, right? And that held me in a very, very strong stead. And that's why I'm very grateful, very privileged. And even if I have to go to Timbuktu for the opportunity to talk to Mr. Bagchi, I will run and come. And with this, let me not take the spotlight. He's the man we are here to listen to. Mr. Bagchi, one question I had, and I'm sure many people here would be grappling with this. You know, today, and especially in Bangalore and any city, right, we are told to be extremely ambitious, driven, successful. And even if we are not told, we see everyone extremely successful. Today, in the Indian startup ecosystem only, we have 65 unicorns. This year, 19 ventures have become more than $1 billion. And for me also, I feel so ashamed, right? Like, because 13 years you're running a company, you see young boys coming and they create $1 billion ventures, and there's ambition, there's fire, you have to be aggressive. But at the same time, Mr. Bagchi, you know, one of the things I think about, be it Hindu philosophy, Buddhism, Taoism, everyone talks about an inner sense of acceptance, an inner sense of peace, strive for peace and accepting life as it is. We all were forced to accept life as it is in the last 1.5 years. I want to ask you, how do you maintain that drive, ambition, and the need to be relevant with, you know, the inner quest to be at peace and to accept life as it is?
So, you know, Shraddha, you make me first of all feel very self-conscious, and then you ask a question which should be actually answered by some spiritual guru, and these days there's a lot of domain expertise around, you know. And those guys are very, very protective about their domain, you know. They don't like other people to come in and start answering the questions that they should be answering. So, I don't know. You know, what you're saying has a lot of lot of sense and feeling, and I think it's very relevant. So I'll tell you how, not from a spiritual or philosophical sense, how it has kind of panned out for me. I was very ambitious and very driven, from the time that I was a child. We grew up in very small places, in the boondocks, literally, and came with, like most of us in this room, would have been children of lower middle class families, not just tier 2 places, but remote places. And coming from there, everything looked wonderful, and everything was joyous, and everything made you to rise up and shine and want to do something. So that kind of an urge somehow was there even as a child. And when Rajesh was introducing you, I don't know if you noticed, more than twice, I think, he referred to being childlike. So we have the child in us, and it's very important to keep the child intact. So that's why my mind on a question like this goes back to the time that I was a child. There's ambition, drive, need, all these things get kind of become part of the personality when you were really small. Now, from that time onwards, then you become, you become a young professional, and you want to get ahead of the crowd. You want to do this, do that. And then it occurred to me, as I looked around, that all of us go through 3 phases in our life. Okay? In your 20s, you want to be someone. Okay? And in your 30s, suddenly you find that you are that someone. Okay? So the journey from the 20s are all drive, all ambition. And the 30s is broadly when you are, you get what you wanted. Materially, personally, professionally. And then from the 30s to the 40s, it's a different journey. It's a journey where you move from who you are to who you are meant to be. Okay? And it's not in your control, actually. So that journey is a journey of who you're meant to be. So suddenly everything looks like it's a preparation. Okay? It is not an easy transition. It presents itself in many different ways, and I've written about it in my books as well. Sometimes it's very difficult, like your movement in your teens are not easy times. Now, it is when you go into that phase that your sense of purpose starts presenting itself. In the 20s, it's ambition and drive. In 30s, it's a joy of seeing that, I got the formula right. Okay, it seems to be working. But the post, 40s, you begin to realize that the universe is whispering and talking to you and saying, this is your purpose. Why the idea of purpose is very important is that if you have ambition and drive, which is delinked from purpose, then you will end up burning at both ends of the candle. Then you will find, a deep sense of frustration will come and settle down inside of you. You will find that there's a lot of dichotomy. You will not find that you are feeling whole. I must tell you that I once had the chance of having an extended conversation with the Dalai Lama. And it was one day after, I think, his 76th birthday or something like that. And I asked him, I said, Your Holiness, you fled Tibet at the age of 16. And your entire life has been about freeing the people of Tibet, and you have not delivered on that. So every morning, you need to be feeling deeply frustrated. But you open the door and you find, your followers, you find media, you find heads of state waiting for you. And your first job is to smile. You can't be the Dalai Lama and frown at the camera. Right? You like it or not like it, you have to give a nice smile. And you can't fake it because people are smart. So I asked him, what gives you the power to smile? How do you smile? So he said, your purpose determines your power. Okay? Your purpose determines your power. And every time I think about the statement, it's very healing. So if you yoke yourself to a purpose which is higher than the immediate conversion ratio that you are wanting to see between your drive and ambition and the return on that investment, okay? If it is a unilateral, unidimensional, if it's a me, myself, I kind of a thing, then it can be wounding. It can leave you at some point in time incomplete, if not mutilated. So we need to find that purpose. Okay? And as I told earlier, the purpose whispers itself. It doesn't speak loudly. Okay? So that means that we have to quieten down. And we have to be kind to ourselves. And I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, you have.
I went a little all over the place.
No, you have. You have. Because, you know, what I'm hearing, Mr. Bagchi, is that ambition, if it is just blind ambition, without any purpose, some soul and some meaning to it, which is not you yourself, but something, then you can continue living with ambition and peace and have peace.
Yeah, you know, you actually stirred a beautiful self-realization, and if it's okay, I will share that. You know, all my life I saw two responsibilities. One responsibility is to deliver on what you are meant to deliver. Okay, so you have taken investor money, you need to build a profitable company, you need to, you know, you're the COO, you are the chairman of the company, whatever, so you deliver that. But I also saw the important need to be a witness. Okay, and that's the common thing between you and I, that I was fascinated with this story unfolding. And it is your responsibility then to give that story, more than creating the artifact that you're building, you have to give the formula away. So which means that you have to capture. So in that process, I was fascinated by watching sometimes common people and sometimes great leaders and see how they think. And my life became very rich with their narratives and stories. And these people are all kinds of people. So I came to the realization, looking at some of these people, who you have interacted directly and sometimes not directly. So for example, Mahatma Gandhi I have never met. Mother Teresa I have met briefly. Muhammad Yunus I had the chance of meeting a number of times. So all kinds of people. And then I was correlating how talent, there is success. So talent is a fuel. Success is the conversion. And impact is yet something else. So I was looking at what is the connection between talent and success and impact. With the same amount of talent and success, what he will impact is going to be far more than what I will impact. So what is that? What is the formula? What is working here? And then I realized that further you are, okay, from people who will be benefited because of your work, greater will be your impact. Okay? So let me explain this to you. So what is Muhammad Yunus? Muhammad Yunus is a professor in the United States of America, divorced, came over to Bangladesh, settled down, got fascinated with the idea of microfinance, tried it with his own money, and before you know, it has become one of the most powerful ideas of the century. Okay? So the idea of microfinance connected to self-help groups, empowerment, women, empowerment and all that kind of stuff. So it didn't come from the Citibank, didn't come from the Goldman Sachs, didn't come from the, from the Palo Alto community. It came from this man. And he impacted without governmental support, without major institutional, legitimacy or whatever. Now, he made that impact because the average beneficiary of the microfinance movement is not his friend and family, no connection whatsoever. Gandhi made this huge impact because people who tasted freedom who are not connected to him. They're not friends and family. Okay? So, further you are, so you have your purpose, which will determine your power, but that purpose's beneficiary, further that person is from you, greater will be your impact. And what is impact? Impact is basically what creates memorability. Your success, your material worth, none of that is really important. What is important is, are you worth remembering? In a world which is largely, in today's world, which is so connected, so humming, so intense, and yet so attention deficient. Okay? You are good today, tomorrow morning you are over. So in this attention deficient, information abundant but attention deficient world, how long will you be remembered and for what is the defining question. And that depends on not just your ambition, which is just a fuel. Okay? The gas tank is not important. Where you are going is more important. Right? Your gas tank is full, big deal. You've got the nicest car, big deal. But where are you going is important. But more importantly, what will you do there once you reach there?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, where are we going? No, I'm just thinking, yeah. No, but no, something to take and remember, because I think power is also such a nuanced word. Your purpose determines your power, and how powerful we are is determined. Yeah, so yeah, I think maybe we could take a quiz sometime later for all the CEOs in the room to understand what's the purpose that's driving them. You know, what's the purpose that they wake up with every day. But before that, Mr. Bagchi, the other question I had for you is, you know, I've observed you and had the opportunity, as I said, now it's a decade I've met you. You know, you've not, and then I've seen a lot of CEOs, and met a lot of successful, very, very accomplished leaders, politicians, leaders, startup founders, and world leaders and all that also. You know, one of the things is very few people have, and you have that memorability, if I may say so, because you don't fit the mold, if I may say so, because you were, when I met you, you were the CEO of Mindtree. And at the same time, I always saw you as a storyteller. So I always saw you as a left brain and a right brain. So you were running a very, you know, you could at the same time tell about the structure, processes, the way Mindtree was built. And at the same time, you had stories. And your stories are not common business stories. Your stories, as I don't know if you have read his book, but one story that remained is one of his books starts with the story of a guy who picks at dead bodies and takes
Mahadeva.
them.
Mahadeva is the man. He's nama Bangalore man, and you know, yeah. So Mahadeva is the grave digger.
Yes, that's how the story starts. And to me, you live in such parallel dimensions, and now when, you know, I heard from people that you're in Odisha, then, you know, it's like you're charting your own journey, your own path, and being original. And have always been original, where it is very, very difficult, because we are all confirming. We all have to conform to a certain pattern or behavior to be successful. And the more we grow, with age, time, success, ready check, money that comes every month or everything, we just become more conforming. And you've not confirmed. How have you done that? How do you do that?
No, that's a very nice question, but I think Bangalore is blessed because I was just chatting a little while ago and was telling Sharan that Bangalore is blessed because you know, Bangalore and Silicon Valley, these two places, you meet people who are not conforming, and they're not, you know, following necessarily a script. But, you know, the script can consume you, to your point. So a couple of things. One is that I think there's a lot of joy in embracing the unknown. Okay? It doesn't mean that I'm a bungee jumper. You know, I'd be very nervous about that. Okay? So I don't jump into, a deep gorge with nothing but a string behind me. I don't do reckless things. I do unusual things, yes, but I don't do reckless things. What I guess you need to know is first of all, your baseline. Where have you come from? Every morning you get up and say, where have I come from? That will pretty much give you a sense of liberation. And most of us, as I was telling you earlier, are children of lower middle class or middle class families. Very few of us were born with a silver spoon. So the moment you know that you came from this baseline, liberates you, and then you can do many things. What do you really have to lose? There's nothing to lose. The second thing is, once you know your baseline, then you need to continuously open yourself up to possibilities. Keep the window open all the time. Destiny always comes and talks to us in whispers. So how do you listen? How do you decode the whisper? There was a lot of questions that I got, from your mail on things like EQ, IQ, and EQ. And to that I wanted to that conversation separately wanted to add the whole idea about listening to your intuition, your intuitive self. I'm doing a lot of reading on neuroscience and doing a lot of reading on, the microbiota inside the human body, which is going to be the really next frontier. It's very clear that the brain did not reside in the head. Okay? The thinking brain did not reside in the head. This is a later phenomena. The most primitive form in which thinking happened was in the gut. And that's a complex process. And even today, the microbiota there, if you weigh all the microbes inside your body, would run into a few kilograms, actually. There are trillions and trillions of them. They're interconnected. They're communicating with each other. They're interpreting data. It is the biggest big data processing that's happening. And they are talking via the vagus nerve to your brain. And the brain is continuously humming with signals and talking. So the intuitive mind is actually here, so the gut feel mind. So the most significant decisions that you can ever take are not happening here. It's not neocortical, it's happening here. So for example, you never made a business plan to present, hopefully never made a business plan, presented it to your spouse before she became your spouse or he became your spouse, right? It was love at first sight. So how did that happen? Or you never consulted McKinsey to come out with a detailed project report before you had a baby. You wanted to have a baby, and you had a baby. Okay. So how do these life-changing decisions happen? Because you listened to a higher feeling, a deeper comfort, a deeper voice. So, to your question about how do you non-conform and how do you do unusual things, it is not mindless, but you're listening to the whisper by listening to the voice within. And then, sometimes the consequences are not known, right? And that is what creates the sense of risk. I must tell you two things that I do, and then I'll tell you a very interesting anecdote which will make people interested. One is that you have to depend on someone. You have to confide in someone. Okay? Your Rock of Gibraltar must present itself, and you have to invest in that relationship. So that someone becomes a sounding board. And if that someone says no, then you don't do it. Okay? So in my case, I fell in love with my wife when she was 16, and I was 18 going on 19. And when I was 21 and I had a Yazdi bike, I said, what else does a man need? He needs a wife now. So I said, marry me, and we got married. So we grew up together, and then she becomes then my Rock of Gibraltar, and she becomes my sounding board. So before I do anything crazy, I say, what do you think? Okay. She's a very respectful relationship. It's not just about fondness, affection, and all that kind of stuff. Very deeply respectful relationship. So you have to have that. So listen to your deep inside, listen to the whisper, and then check it out with somebody. Okay? Don't press the trigger and then inform. The third thing is take wise counsel. Now I'll tell you the anecdote. So 2016, 31st March, I stepped down from Mindtree, hand over the baton to my co-founder Krishna Kumar, and the 2nd April, I was to, I had a commitment to deliver a talk at what is called the Odisha Knowledge Hub, which is the topmost platform that the government of Odisha has, where all the bureaucrats come together, and like you are, engaging with me today, they listen to someone who was outside the system to learn from unusual sources. So I was, committed to delivering that talk, 2nd of April, 2 days after Mindtree. I did that, not realizing that the chief minister was listening in to the conversation from his room. So he never sits in this, so that his officers have a complete freewheeling discussion. So 4th of April, he gives a call and says, Mr. Bagchi, he calls everybody Mr. So he says, Mr. Bagchi, if you can please come and, work with us, help us with skill development for school dropouts mostly, so they become employable. Now, I have never been in public service, barring that 1 year that I was a clerk in a government department. So, but that's very different. And, you grow up in Bangalore, you grow up, you don't have to bother about government. So you've been pretty much outside the system. And here is the chief minister of a state called you, and in his own, he's an extremely suave person, by the way. He's a great charmer. So he says very softly, very nicely, Mr. Bagchi, would you please come? So you can't say no, okay? Neither do you want to say yes, because you don't know what this is going to lead to. So what I did was I took time from him to think it over, and I decided that I'll talk to 4 people. If any of those 4 people will say it's not a good idea, I'll not do it. So number 1, I have to talk to Sushmita, my wife. And she's a very private person, as Sharon and Meena will tell you. So I thought that she will say no. So that's the end of it. You just finished with Mindtree. You have your nice apartment, great friends in Bangalore. So read, write, teach, travel. Why get into these things? So she said, no, you should do it, because you're born in that state and you have debt to repay. So I said, okay. The second person I spoke with is Manish Savarwal here, team leads. And Manish is one of the top, thinker-doers in the world of skill development, particularly skill development for unemployed youth. So I went and had great respect for Manish, and Manish heard me out and said, I think you should do it. Then I spoke to my eldest brother, who's a retired bureaucrat. He was in the IS and he had retired long back. So I called him, he was in Delhi. I said, the chief minister called up and he is saying this. So what do you think? He gave me a mouthful. And he said, you IT types, you private sector guys, you always are smarty pants and you make all kinds of statements about government and you have disdain and you have your own opinions. So if you have any worth, come and show. So I said, okay. Then I went to Nandan. Because Nandan's been there, done that. Nobody among us can ever match what Nandan has done in terms of changing the destiny of a civilization. The truth is, Aadhaar has given identity to the largest single democracy in the whole world. And who knows the system better than Nandan? So I spoke to Nandan. I went to Koramangala, his house, and long conversation. I told him, Nandan, the CM said this, I said this, blah, blah. So Nandan, as you know, is listening. You don't know what's going on in his head. There are 4 supercomputers humming in there. At the end of it, Nandan asked a very simple question. He said, okay, but tell me one thing. Do you speak the language? I said, what do you mean? You don't know. Do you speak the language? You take this job if you speak the language. If you don't speak the language there, they will chew you and spit you out before you know it. Okay? Every single day, last 5 years, I have woken up to thank Nandan for that advice and realize how true it was. You are this IT whiz and you are this Bangalore phenomena. Then you get the CM calls you, every other CM calls every other guy, and they'll land up and they say, I'm going to change the world. And then you speak English there. Not going to work. Okay? So I think the fact that I'm still surviving 5 years after in the government is because I can speak the language better than most people in that state can. I can read, write, and speak that language because I studied in a government school. Now, I'm giving this anecdote to tell you that the choices you make will become more risk-free, okay, if you listen to good counsel. And you don't go to a Nandan Nilekani with a preconceived idea. You don't go there to seek positive affirmation. You don't that affirmative bias or whatever that term is. So be open, listen to the whisper, have a very strong sounding board that you respect deeply. And third is a people. We live in the middle of greatness. We live in the shadow of great people. So turn and say, be open, candid, be honest, and seek, and thou shalt have it. So once you have that, it's not a lot of risk. C.K. Prahlad actually said something very nice. I deeply, deeply respect that man. What a great man he was. In 1990s, when he was shaking corporate India up out of its slumber to say you need to be world class, he would come around and say, we all talk about, taking risks. He said, you are not here to take a risk. Nobody wants to, he's giving his money to you. He doesn't want you to, gamble with that. So he doesn't want you to take risks with that money. He says our job is to de-risk. So our job is not to create risks for others and for ourselves. So you look at possibilities and then you look at how do you de-risk the journey from there to here. So there is intuition, but it is not about recklessness. So you create the purpose, you look at where the possibilities are. And there's an interesting question that Anup has. I was seeing Anup's questions and he had an architectural question, so time permitting, we will take that. And in that point, I will actually link a little bit of this conversation to that.
Okay, Anup, we'll take your question. We have lots of questions. Again,
you have to shut me up.
No, we don't want to. We have come to hear you, no? Rajesh, when we have to get drunk, then you tell us to shut up. Then before that, we can talk.
Yeah, I'm so thankful Sushmita is not here. Meena knows. She would say, you just talk too much. Just talk too much.
No, but but your talk is very, I think we are all learning and absorbing a lot of things which are of value for all of us. Sometimes I think, when you're talking, we should take notes. Should have pen and paper and take notes. Before I take the questions, Rajesh, which you said, last question from my side to you, Mr. Bagchi. It's a very personal, desire. You said you love neuroscience and you study that. If we could get inside your brain and get inside a peek inside your brain space, mind space, heart space, what would we find there? How have you lived your life, or how do you think about your days, your life? Because you keep getting better. You look always proper. You're always so intelligent with all the right answers. What do you do? What do you do inside your brain?
My good Lord, you stumped me completely.
No, and also in terms of, values. Sometimes I think that with time one realizes it's all of us have some kind of values. What are some of and were they formed early? What are some of your foundational values?
Yes, that's actually a very precise question, and I'm more comfortable taking that question. But maybe I'm comfortable taking the first part of your question because I've always admired you as a deeply intuitive person, deeply connected, spiritually connected person. She talked about going inside, saying, if you were to step inside my being, what would you see? I think I've been blessed with one thing, and that is, it's very, very, psychologists will tell you that it's very commonplace to have a persona, right? We project ourselves, and that's part of life and living. So you have a different face to your child and a different projection when you're in the boardroom. You are different when you're meeting a journalist. You're different as you and I are sitting here and we are in front of a camera streaming the conversation live. So multiple projection can be sometimes very difficult, but it is real. And I won't say that I am just one projection, but I think most of the times I'm one projection. So what you see me outside is what you will see me inside. I'm consistent. Usually I'm consistent. I see myself as somebody who is vulnerable. I see myself as incomplete in many respects. I see myself as, I see myself as an instrument, I always felt that way. And this deep thought kept getting refined. And more I see events, associations, that realization only becomes stronger. Okay? So early days of Mindtree, 1999, we had an office in Banashankari. And Banashankari, Jayanagar are very rich on music, right? So every other day you find some performance happening. And that time there was a Bangalore musical hubba going. That was very strong. I don't know how strong it is now. So in one of those musical hubbas, a fairly senior artist, a flutist, was playing in one of those ordinary performance places in Jayanagar. So he was a flutist, and he was accompanying the tabla player. The place is 1/4 full, but musicians are great people. When they perform, they pretend that it's 5,000 people attending. It doesn't matter to them, okay? Which is something very important to learn. And so this flutist actually came with a bag full of flutes. And it's, his performance, so he's taking one for each raga or whatever he is playing. He uses a different instrument. And after playing 3-4 ragas with different flutes, they put them back again, close the zipper, and the musician and flutes went away. And it occurred to me, the flute has a life. The music actually comes from the flute, right? And the flute doesn't get the limelight. You always listen to the flutist, okay? The flute comes in a bag, and where did the flute come from? It was actually a young bamboo. Flutes never come, okay? When the bamboo is ripe, lived his life, had his single malt whiskey, okay? Done his, glory, greatness, his stuff. So you get cut from the punch when you have not yet tasted life. As if that is not enough, you are sun-dried. As if that is not enough, somebody puts holes in you. As if that's not enough, then carries you, never introduces you to the audience, saying, this is my flute, please stand and give an ovation. Wow. Right? You come in a bag, you perform, you get zipped, and you get taken away. So I feel I'm not in that level of clairvoyance, but when I see these things, I get reinforced that we are instruments. Wow. So we are here. The performer is somebody else. Okay? More we deeply internalize that, more blessed we will be, more fulfilled we will be, more impactful we will be. So if you were to step into me, most of the times, this is who you will find inside of me. Yeah.
Wow. Now something else to remember for next 10 years.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is so
it
beautiful.
Is beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And everyone will agree. You saying it also makes it more beautiful. I wish we all have that gift of speaking like you. Yeah. Okay, now I will take the questions which Rajesh you have sent. And there are many, so...
We'll start with Anup.
Okay.
I'm in love with this question.
Okay, Anup.
Anup, you better, you say it in your own words.
Oh, why don't you do that? Yeah. I have it if you want to read it, yeah.
There were two of them. I don't know which one.
Is the one on architecture? That's
Yeah.
the question you asked, but
Yeah.
putting your signature?
This is a question which keeps bothering me as a creative person. Keeping in light of a design company, that I'm an architect, should we have a design signature or should the project need take precedence and have its own signature?
Beautiful. So, Anup, there is, I'm fascinated with architecture all my life. And I've been very blessed to see architects closely at work. Being in Bangalore, you're particularly blessed because you hang out with people like Prem Chandavarkar, you hang out with people like Naresh Venkatraman, and not to talk about many, many, many others. And just as Shraddha was talking about getting inside my being, I often try to get inside their beings. And we did a lot of work with a lot of good architects together. And all of them have the same dilemma. Right? Many of them have. So there's no right or wrong way of looking at it. Okay, I will give you the cold-blooded capitalistic answer first. The cold-blooded capitalistic answer is it all depends on the architect and the client. Okay. Sometimes you want to carry a bag with the Louis Vuitton name as big as possible. Okay, the bag doesn't matter. What is inside the bag doesn't matter. Where you got the money to buy the bag doesn't matter. But whether it is yeah. So people should know that it's LV is prominently up there. So sometimes you get hired by a client because you're Mr. Hafiz contractor, and it makes a social conversation so much more enriching, right? And sometimes you are that architect who's here because your sense of purpose is that every building that you design must have your signature. Okay? Doesn't Ritz-Carlton have its Ritz-Carlton name written on top? So nothing wrong in that. And yet, it's another way of looking at it, and that is, why were you sent here? You were sent here to work with space. And space is a holy thing. Space, every space has its soul. And that soul wants to express itself. And you are an instrument. The soul is not saying, put your signature, LV Anup, on that. Okay? The soul is saying, I'm a barren land. Okay? There's nothing here. And I want to be a school where little kids come, okay, and teachers come, and joys are created, and ambitions are built, okay. So another space is saying, I've been neglected, I'm basically in shambles for as long as I can remember. I want to be a temple. Another place says, I want to be a stadium. Another place says, I want to be a housing for elderly. Another place says, I want to be a hospital. So the architect is the person who is channelizing the soul to be what the soul wants to be. Then you are subservient to that. Then it does not matter whether your name is on the front and your signature style is more important than the expression of the soul. So you look at India, okay? Since we are all, in Karnataka, you think of the Belur Halebedu temples. Who's the architect? Who cares? Okay. Taj Mahal, whose signature style is that? Who's the architect? Who cares? Konark, who cares? The Roman ruins, who cares? So what will survive is not the signature style. What will survive is the skill, the talent, the competence, the devotion, the affection, the love, the sincerity, and the sense of purpose. But it's a choice you make. 6 feet down under, nobody's going to ask if you did the first one, you made LV bags, and you put your signature all over the place, you will be still 6 feet down under. And the guy who built Taj Mahal was also 6 feet down under, or rather is 6 feet down under. It doesn't matter. So we have to make our choice, and we have to live with the consequences. The other very important and interesting, sorry, don't clap yet. Other very interesting thing is that, architects are people, and we are all architects, by the way. Okay? We are architecting different things. Right? So we are all architects, and our dilemma can be very similar to what Anup is expressing. So we are, because of our education, we are mostly given to what is called reductive thinking. So I'll give you a space, and I'm the client, I'm a well-paying client, and I will tell you, I'll give you a brief. Or if I don't know how to give a brief, some good-looking young architects, men and women, will say how to create a brief, and then a brief will become collaboratively created, all that stuff. And what will it all be? It will basically reduce things. You will say, what is the dimension? You want to know what the material. You want to know what's the purpose, and all that kind of stuff. So you're quickly drawn into reductive thinking. Our education trains us like that. Also, neurologically, we are designed like that. For example, you walk into this room, you take this room in, the first thing that occurs is the dimension of the room. You look around, you find how many tables are there. Where am I going to sit? So all this is reductive thinking. And when you reduce the possibilities into, these kinds of things, then you make it more manageable to process. However, so imagine in your mind that you got a, kind of a y and x axis, and you are exposed to something, and you are doing reductive thinking like this. Okay, so it's a huge, big possibility, and then you are reducing that to brief and specifications and what you will do, and where will you put the signature style in that. So that's reductive thinking. But you also have to simultaneously engage with what is called a wonder. Okay? So if the graph is like this for reductive thinking, wonder is like this. So it's an infinitesimal thing. Okay? It's like raised hands. The sense of wonder ceases to engage with signature styles. You come in and you say this, you look at this space, and you're no longer talking about a CEO club meeting here. Your mind is saying, wouldn't it be phenomenal, okay, to have a musical performance here? Okay. What else could we be doing here? Next time we do a CEO club, instead of getting somebody like Subroto here, why don't we get a few kids from 10th, 12th standard schools in Bangalore, different schools, and listen to them speak about their idea of the future. So space remaining the same, you are not doing reductive thinking. You are in sense of wonder. Breakthrough things will happen when we engage with sense of wonder. But as soon as we have that sense of wonder, we need to come into reductive thinking so that you deliver on it. Otherwise, you'll be lost in that big, you'll be basically smoking dope. Okay? So, if you're obsessed with signature styles in anything that you do, not just architecture, building hospitals, schools, businesses, software companies, if you're obsessed with the signature style, it is coming at the cost of losing wonder. And the life is short. Okay? The journey from where we are sitting and to the ventilator can be a very short journey, actually. So it will be a lost opportunity with the kind of intellect that is here in this room. It will be a hugely lost opportunity if we deny ourselves wonder. So you decide.
Yeah, that's intriguing. And I think that will become the fundamental to look at things. Wonderment. That's the only, I think, one big cycle of creative thinking also.
And
touches
there's a
that part
soul.
in
For everything,
everything.
there's a soul. Inanimate things, animate things. There's a soul that is continuously saying, I want to be this. Okay? I want to be this. I want to be this. So your story is not Shraddha's. There was something called your story wanting to present itself. And Shraddha became an instrument of that. Did the Kalari Capital money, did you inherit it from your grandpa? No, you didn't. So it flows from places unknown to him. Okay? You know the channels, but you don't know where, there was no blockchain to tell you exactly where did that capital creation happen, one drop at a time. And then it's saying that, a company needs to happen here, a startup needs to happen there, a unicorn has to happen. It's all happening. Okay? So we need to respect the need for the soul to present itself.
Should we take questions? Because there are many questions here. But if you are present and you've sent the question, then maybe you could ask yourselves.
Maybe you should also give your editorial comments because,
I'm loving it. My editorial comment is, please carry on. The show must go on. and I think all of us are, there's a lot to reflect in what you are saying. And maybe tomorrow when we'll get up, then we won't remember exactly everything, but we'll have some things that we will, mull over and have.
So let me ask you a question here. I'm obsessing on gender issues quite a lot. More so, look at that. More so in the last 5 years, working with the government and seeing development issues at close quarters. And I find that the kind of issues that women have to go through in the world, in this country, it doesn't matter whether you are from the bottom of the pyramid or it's the top of the pyramid. I want to know, as a startup entrepreneur yourself, how has it engaged you? How has it frustrated you? How has it, what were some of the moments of truth that you have? What is it that we can learn from you?
My God, the question itself is so intelligent.
The startup ecosystem itself is unusual, and within that what you did was unusual, or what you are doing is unusual. And then, being a woman, you come all the way from Patna, right? Patna, that's where you came from, if I remember correctly. And you land up in Bangalore, and you had this personal, crisis that you were also dealing with, that you so gracefully, openly, magnanimously, you openly talk about that. And in that, you create something beautiful like your story. So what does it mean to be a woman and making this difference here?
Wow, that's such a beautiful question. I'm stealing that question because every time I'm going to ask other women this question. But Mr. Bagchi, it is, I don't know, I think it's very, I don't want to say rhetoric, but I think being a woman, being a woman is, I feel, is a very big journey. Every story is filled with a lot of things, but I think the arc in a woman's story is very, very, very big, very, very huge. And the thing I would only say that I chose very early on in life is that I could either be the victim of my story or I could be the heroine of my story.
Oh,
and I really think I'm like the superheroine of my story. Because every day I could wake up, because every day, Mr. Bagchi, it is like, it's like everywhere. In the topmost, you meet the topmost, you get anywhere and everywhere, and it is there. How do you let it define you? And somewhere I just think as women, as people, the more we define, like, the way I have defined myself now, this year I become 40, and I see, young girls come and they tell me, oh, I want to be like you. You're so cool. You're so this. And I was just thinking, the more I can be myself, The more young girls I create, more space and more opportunities for girls to be themselves. Because I don't want to stand here and say that life has been very harsh and life has been difficult and then men are like this. Because my biggest supporters and lovers and amazing people have been men. And at the same time, so you can't just have that lens of black and white because, I wouldn't be here if it was not for men. But at the same time, today, the world also has men who have a long journey to make. And I can't spiritually wait for men to make that journey and say, oh my God. So I don't want to be either ways. I have to make my journey and I have to be the heroine. And then I have seen that people love if you love yourself. And I think as a woman, the more I've embraced that I'm a woman and I don't want to be anything else but a woman, and it has helped, but it has been hard. It has been hard. It has come with time. It has come with practice. It has come with meditation. It has come with a mindset where you don't want to be cynical, because I really don't want to, because today I can sit and I go to forums and I think many times women hate me. In fact, a very super strong woman got upset with me. Priyanka Chopra was there. So, and we were all there, all film stars and all of us. And someone said, oh, my husband and my father created safe space and I never faced gender inequality because I don't know why women make such an issue out of it and talk Tom about it and all that. And I looked at her because I come from Bihar. And we girls growing up only are seen, we were labeled as dowries when we were babies. And so we came from a very different reality because in my community, people get married by 16, 17, 18. So, and I said, no, it's not true. Like, I said, it's your reality. But everyone in India has their own reality. And you can't reductive thinking that you were saying. You can't say that everyone's story is same story.
Or everyone has the same story.
Yeah.
Did you see that YouTube, the TEDx talk about multiple stories?
No, I will check it out.
So this is amazing. You must listen to this brilliant African writer who talks about multiple narratives and multiple stories.
We all have.
Yeah, absolutely. But tell me, so your story is big now, but when you were trying to create your story, and you are in a all sudden a male-dominated tech world, did you sometimes feel patronized? And
of course.
And did it hurt?
Of course, Mr. Bagchi. I used to cry a lot. See, because I laugh, as you can say, I'm childlike. So I don't conform to a certain way of behavior. One person whom everyone in this room will know, and that's why I don't want to name him, told me one day from the airport we landed and and I was also in the business class. I got an upgrade and I was sitting next to him. But then we
didn't ask you whether you paid for it. So this is very, very careful. I got an upgrade. Economy class is money. Yeah.
No, because I was sitting with such an amazing man, and then he said, oh, I'll drop you. I said, no. Then he said, no, get your car too. So he dropped me, and on the way he said, listen, I want to give you an advice. I said, yes, please tell me. No, of course I said very nicely, yes, starry-eyed, please tell me. He said, Shraddha, you really have to grow up. I said, of course, yes, yeah.
Really?
And no, wait. He says, you don't know how to dress up. And
no.
Yes, he said that, you think you are very popular and social media and you have these followers and all that, but you don't, in the meetings when you are with the men inner circle of Bangalore, you need to wear sari. And you need to dress in a certain way, talk in a certain way. You just go and start laughing and giggling. People don't take you seriously. And Mr. Bagchi, पूरे भगवान को pray किया, meditation की रो नहीं इस आदमी के सामने. I shouldn't be crying. But I felt so bad. And I just felt so bad. And it was night. I wanted to get out of the car. But the good behavior which I was telling Sucharita was holding me. But the whole thing was that you need to dress in a certain way, talk in a certain way, wear sari, otherwise you'll never be respected. And I was thinking, who is he? Like, really? And today, Mr. Bagchi, I'm quite respected than him. I'm just saying, I didn't wear the sari, I didn't, but it happens all the time, and with the best and the most prolific and amazing of the men, they say that to you. You know, honestly, few men whom I have loved is Mr. Ratan Tata. The more I meet him, the more I feel amazing, because he makes you embrace your own craziness. And then the more, you know, I met Angela Merkel, the more I've met global leaders, there are other, so I don't want to say that people are like that, but there are people who've just said that just be yourself. And that's why I asked you, this question was coming from a very personal space when I asked you that you have, I see you, you know, of course you are respectable and you don't have to wear sari, but you wear proper suit and all that. But I'm just saying that, but to me, you have also been a non-conformist in some way, right? And being a storyteller and a business guy. So I think we are all told to mold ourselves in a certain way, and women more so. The other thing was, someone told me, oh, and I've always run a profitable business till I raised money. Then I became non-profitable. And again, I'm profitable, by the way, in pandemic. You know, someone told me, you know, you really, really have to brush up your finance skills, because you are all creative and all that. You don't know your numbers. Bhaiya, profitable business chalaya tha. Khud apne spine pe chalaya tha without taking any money. I know how to run that. Then, you know, you don't know what AOP means, you don't know this. There's a way of saying, but saying that you're useless, right? Because you are a woman, you don't know, you are creative and all that. And I was speaking to one of the very famous unicorn founders, and he told me, I was told the same thing, the guy, very famous, and he said, I was told the same thing. I told the investor or whoever told him this, that shut up, I know how to run my business. As a CEO, if I'm supposed to know everything, then why do I have a CFO? Why do I have then if you want me to do everything, then why do I have? And I shut whoever told me this forever. Then now never do they enter a meeting and they say what you should be doing. But to me, when that thing said, oh, you need to brush up your finance, you don't know your numbers, and it felt very, and third is that everyone said, there were many men in the room, again in a meeting, they said, you know, one of your biggest drawbacks is that you're very emotional. At the drop of the hat, you can start crying. And a woman who's like that will never go far. So I like thinking, how can a woman who cries doesn't go far? Our mothers cried, everyone cried. And you know, this has been my superpower. I'll cry and go far. I'll laugh and go far. I'll not wear sari and go far. So
I'm very sorry to hear that. No, but I think these narratives need to be openly talked about, particularly in Bangalore.
You always force me to say things which I don't want to say.
No, you know, I'll tell you. You see, few years ago, I think it was a couple of years ago, I was in Delhi. Because Mohandas Pai wanted me to come and attend a convention there. I avoid Delhi. You know, you feel very insecure in a place like Delhi, having come from Bangalore. You know, we don't want to go to Delhi. So, but Mohandas Pai said, no, you have to come. So he was the FICCI chair at that time for skill development. And I went there reluctantly. And I'm sitting in the speaker's lounge, and an Arab gentleman walks in wearing robe, you know, Arab robe. And we have stereotypes about the Arabs, right? So I said, what is this guy doing here? So must be one of those consulate guys, they have nothing to do. And he's a speaker. Turns out that this man is a PhD in artificial intelligence from one of the leading US universities. Okay. Wow. And he's from Qatar, and he is going to make a presentation. So I said, okay, maybe, you know, Arab money, you put money, buy yourself a place in a US university, maybe, you know, you've done something there, but is there really something significant I can learn against stereotypes? And then this man stands up to talk. And he is saying, so with artificial intelligence and machine learning and Internet of Things, do you realize what will be the biggest impact? Silence. The biggest impact would be that the dangerous jobs will no longer be dangerous. Okay. So in civilizationally, we have been trained to look at some jobs which are dangerous jobs. And who does dangerous jobs? The men who do the dangerous jobs. Okay. Women cannot do dangerous jobs. That's because the machines were dumb. Put the intelligence in the machine, okay, and then the machine does the so-called dangerous part, taking danger out, like C.K. Prahlad talked about de-risking, takes the danger out. And then who can do the job better? It is the smarter of the species who can do the job better. Okay? The one who can read 20 dials simultaneously and watch exceptions and take corrective measure and can do anticipative thinking, that individual, read the woman compared to the man, will be able to do that job better. So where is this man going with that? So he's saying that the more intelligent being, and this is an Arab guy talking, in a full Arab robe, the more intelligent being today is the woman. So what are we doing in Qatar? We have decided to make the boys learn little to be like girls in school. Okay, so people like us in our, where, how we have grown up, etc., with the stereotypes and the gender, the warped gender thinking, we have lost the ability to connect with the feminine part in me. So I'm incomplete. And here is Qatar talking about how do we make little boys think more like little girls, because you'll fix the gender issue there. And this patronizing thing that I asked you was a serious question, because we do that all the time without realizing, sometimes with good intent. Okay, that guy who gave you that, that ride, and he did that thing, didn't know that he is doing something stupid, probably. Okay, so we, in a place like the Silicon Valley of Bangalore, we do not know unconsciously we may be doing that. And my request would be to the CEOs here to be goddamn lot more sensitive, lot more respectful, and know that you are talking to a higher life form when you are in front of a woman. You have no business to be.
Okay. Question for Mr. Bagchi? Or are we done?
I think we can maybe go with one or max two questions.
Would you tell me a little about yourself before you throw the question so I know how to contextualize it?
Yes, I will. My name is Aarti Madhusudan, and I work on good governance for non-profits.
Sit, Aarti, please sit. Okay. Otherwise, I'll have to stand.
No, I'm not very tall, so I wanted to be sure you could
you
see
tall.
me.
You are standing tall, don't worry.
Yeah, so I work with non-profits on boards and governance, and I'm also very vested in the idea of volunteering. My question to you is, Mr. Bagchi, what is the role of philanthropy in a capitalist environment like this? I mean, as a country, I think we are way behind in terms of how philanthropic we can possibly be. What is the way you think that more inspiration can be created amongst CEOs of successful companies to be more philanthropic?
I think you need to ask this question to somebody like Premji, actually. No, I'm telling you very seriously. I don't think I have the legitimacy to come out with a refined response to a question like this. Whatever little I have legitimacy, and I can talk about volunteerism. I can talk about engaging in work outside of a tight definition of work. Philanthropy is a much bigger thing. So people who are in Mr. Premji's level, or people or the Tatas, for example, they are the people who have the legitimacy to talk about philanthropy. I won't be, qualified to talk. So release me from the obligation of answering this, but is there something else nested inside what you just said that I could talk about.
Yes, so I mean, I would love to hear your thoughts about volunteering, because I think that's the first step towards being more empathetic and aware of the world around you. We all, we're lucky we have won the ovarian lottery, so privilege gives us a lot more freedom and access in terms of how we can possibly spend our time. When do you think volunteering should start? I mean, my view is it should be, and it sounds idiotic, but I think it should be made compulsory in schools. You can't make volunteering compulsory, I know that, but...
you can't make volunteering compulsory. And certainly not in the school. You have to start with the adults, okay? Because when these children see parents volunteering, then they will volunteer. So doing it in the school is retrofit. You teach them volunteering in school, and then the kid comes back and sees that the parents are, in a me, myself, I world. It's going to crack right there. My first self-realization on volunteering came when, in 1990, Ms. Premji told me to go to the Silicon Valley to set up Wipro's operations there. And I was stunned with, what the level of volunteerism that is there in that country and what it is doing to the total ecosystem. I think one of the competitive advantage that the United States has is the people engagement, citizen engagement. I used to live in a place called Cupertino. Some of you are familiar. And in Cupertino, my most important client wasn't Apple. My most important client was a company called Tandem. They used to make fault-tolerant computers. Tandem at that time was a $2 billion company, which was big because at $2 billion, you were Fortune 500. So the Tandem chairman, who I never had the opportunity to meet, even as Tandem was my client, I realized was the chairman of the local school committee there. And he took it seriously. Okay? And unlike our so-called committees here, okay, you have Government of India committees, dime a dozen, you have state committees. So who cares about school committee? But no, in the United States, the school committee meets and intensely meets, and it's a public school. It's not a private school, public as in government school. And he took it more seriously, or rather as seriously as running his board in Tandem. And then it occurred to me that he's signaling something to his corporation. Okay. So everybody in the corporation realizes that you have to engage something above and beyond what you are doing. And then I further realized, working and living in the United States, that there is an altruistic side to volunteerism. That you are purer, your soul is becoming, nicer, and there is a separate queue to heaven for people who have volunteered. No, that's not true. Volunteering has some very definitive, very selfish outcomes. Not selfish, but fulfilling outcome in a personal sense. Selfish is a bad word. So people who volunteer are getting connected to the universe immediately. Okay? The mind is getting open. They are more likely to pick up whispers. That may turn out to actually coming out to the next great product idea or service idea. Yet another interesting aspect of volunteerism is its connection to innovation. Okay? Innovation is a voluntary act. You cannot make an office circular tomorrow that from day after tomorrow, after the innovation week gets over, everybody will innovate. Okay? A.R. Rahman cannot be told to compose the next great piece of music. She can't be forced, at gunpoint to come out with a fabulous story. So every act of innovation in the whole universe is a voluntary act. So if that is voluntary, volunteerism is innate inside you, and you need to be in touch with that, and you need to sharpen it. Like if you don't do maths regularly, you will not be good at maths. If you don't go to gym every day, you will not tone your muscles. So if you do not do volunteerism, how will you ever be able to unleash the power of volunteerism inside you, which is a necessary condition to be able to innovate? And your job depends on your innovation. Corporations critically depend on how innovative its people are. Then you turn the whole conversation upside down and say, can my corporation be a platform for innovation? How do you use the workplace as a platform? Because it all comes back. So the return on investment on volunteerism for the individual and the corporation is phenomenal. So if that is phenomenal, apart from the return on capital, there is something called reputational capital. Today, reputational capital is far more important than even money, because once in a while you will get into trouble if you're running a business. And when you get into trouble, you basically settle with reputational capital. Okay? So if you have a Shell that did an oil slick long back, people have not forgiven Shell for that. But recently when BP had an oil slick in Florida, people said the CEO must be jailed. Lots of people said, what's wrong with you guys? You know, this CEO is a good guy, BP is a good company, mistakes happen. The CEO can't figure out, where oil spills are happening, or, they will clean up, don't worry about it. So one company didn't get forgiven. Another company, people said, no, they're good people, give them a second chance. It happened because BP had pre-invested in building reputation. So reputational capital in today's world is very critical. You don't know when you will need it. And where does that reputational capital come from? It comes when your people are engaged with society in a meaningful way, not in a fake way, not because CSR mandates it. So volunteerism makes huge sense. And corporations must become platforms where people in a both unstructured way and structured way must engage with the larger reality, and the return on that investment is phenomenal. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. My name is Giri Balasubramaniam.
Hi, Giri.
To just pick on what Shraddha said, I'm a quiz master, so I can take the CEOs here to task if you want me to, on the quiz that you mentioned. But sir, I've got a serious question on leadership for you. I think all of us will unanimously agree here that in the last 1.5 years, one of the things that's really underlined our lives has been unpredictability. And coupled with that unpredictability is vulnerability. These combinations have never happened together before. So if you were to clock back 20 years and you were a young CEO, what would you really tell your people? We're struggling for words, so to say, to engage with youngsters. So what would be your advice, sir?
No, this is a very deep and touching question. And so when Mindtree had just happened, 1999 Mindtree happened, and very boisterous and very writing on a lot of hope and a lot of excitement because e-com and telecom both were coming up big way, and Mindtree was designed to be a born internet company, and we thought we know telecom very strongly. And the first thing that happened was the telecom, the bubble began to burst. But e-com was doing fine, and we were one of the fewest companies. The big companies didn't know e-com at all. So it was uncharted territory, and the nimble ones, smart ones were getting it. So we're looking like God's specially chosen ones. And then 9/11 happened. And suddenly the world changes. No longer a CIO will dabble in e-com. A CIO will get sacked if you talk about, fancy stuff like econ. So what was the money, where was the money going? The money was entirely going for keeping the lights on operations. So, which basically meant that the mainframes had to be kept humming. The ERPs had to work, right? Nobody wanted to do fancy things to implement a new CRM or start, taking advice from Ravi Kalakota and trying to build a new way to do B2C and all that kind of stuff. So suddenly Mindtree is irrelevant. Only the big ones are relevant. And you have 500 people. I was in New Jersey at that time, and New Jersey was I'm sorry to be using a term like this, I don't mean to offend anybody, but there's a very famous sociologist who wrote a book the book was centered around a phenomena that New Jersey became the widow capital of the United States of America. The largest number of widows suddenly were in New Jersey because people died in the Twin Tower. Every day you come into the workplace and you could sense a deep sense of grief, and there is smoke. And if you remember, for months and months and months, the DNA issues didn't get settled, so funerals didn't take place. So which also meant that for months and months and months, every week somebody actually finally did a funeral for a loved one. So in the office, nobody talks to anybody. It's nowhere close to what the pandemic has been. So I'll come to that point in a little while. And I was young at that time. And I was saying, so what's my first job as a leader? My first job as a leader is to acknowledge that we have a crisis. Don't pretend that there is no crisis. Say that this is never before, this is a crisis. Number two, have the humility to stand up and say, I can't tell you when this will be over. We get obsessed about the need to give answers to every question. There is no need for giving answers to every question. Will I have my job? Is Mindtree going to lay off people? My cousin has just, works for Accenture and has been told to not come from tomorrow morning. Are you going to do that? I'm not my last appraisal was not so good, so will I lose my job? You can't give an answer. You don't have the answer. My client has shut down shop, and I've been sitting on the bench for the last 3 weeks. What will happen to me? I don't have. That you need to come out with good-looking answers, smart answers, convincing answers, as if you're on, television, right? You need to look good, feel good. You need to say all is well, and you need to say, I got the answer. No, you don't have the answer. So first, you need to acknowledge that there's a crisis. Second, you have to say, I don't know. I really don't know. And third is that you need to then say, can you help me? Can we overcome this together? So suddenly, it is not about being a superstar. It's not being about a hero. It is not being about whatever. It is about being in it together. And you need to transfer that sense. And you need to cry with your people. You need to put your hand on the shoulder. You need to hug somebody. You need to be real. And you need to also fulfill the number one requirement as a leader, and that is leaders must give hope. When crisis was taking place in our childhood, in our own homes, okay, and you thought it's a full-blown crisis. You have 104-degree temperature, typhoid. You are really thinking that the whole world is coming to an end, and the doctors are not very sure, medications are getting changed, but somebody is putting her hand on your head and say, बेटा कल ठीक हो जाएगा, ठीक हो जाएगा. Does she know ठीक हो जाएगा? No, she doesn't. But that leader is saying that there is hope. So as leaders in moments of crisis, our number one deliverable is hope. Now I'll shift to the pandemic. We need to forget one wrong notion that this crisis we have seen last 2 years has never happened before. Okay? Between the two world wars, 6 million Jews were exterminated, killed. 6 million, which is nearly, Bangalore's population is 10 million, really. So imagine 60% of Bangalore is gone. And you are a Jew. Okay? And your neighbor has been taken, and your young daughter is in this room hiding, and the Nazis are actually going to come tonight. If they don't come tonight, maybe they'll come tomorrow morning. This pandemic, I read more books about the World War. I read more books about human migration. The kind of migration that happened because of the lockdown has happened many times. I was with Dr. Devi Shetty 2 days back, and he said, do you realize in the last 100 years, there have been more than 3 such migrations on the same migration routes in India? I was stunned to hear that. So when you read Amitabh Ghosh's Glass House, and he writes basically not fiction, but historical fictions. When you read his Ibis trilogy, you realize that nothing has changed. You read a book called The Pianist, okay, which is about the German occupation of Austria. And it's an autobiographical story. There's a movie, but read the book. And then I read a book called Gentleman in Moscow. Okay? A man, his entire life practically was in house arrest inside a hotel in Moscow. Okay? So the communists basically said, if you step out of the hotel, we'll shoot you. So you talk about quarantine, no? And how restless we were. This man actually spent his entire adult life inside a hotel. Hotel room, he can come down to eat and go back to his hotel room. So when you look at these kinds of things, you look at the kind of, from Myanmar, how that happened when India was getting independent, right? The whole Burmese, the upheaval, and people walked. I know in Bangalore I know Bangaloreans whose uncle actually walked all the way from, Burma at that time to Calcutta, and then found his way back to Bangalore. So people walked. People died on the way. So if you look at these human suffering stories, okay, there have been many. So it's not the first time it is happening. No, that's not true. So if we go back and read a little bit, we'll realize that it has happened before. We need resilience. Okay. I'm sure you have read the book called Man's Search for Meaning. Right? Books like The Pianist, books like Man's Search for Meaning, Amitabh Ghosh's Read Glass Palace, the Ibis trilogy, and then you will say, no, we'll survive. Okay. Things will be okay. Humankind has seen worse, actually. But meanwhile, be real with your people. Be gentle. Okay? Don't fret the return on investment for some time. And yeah, it is okay to lose business, lose customers, lose the basic premises with which you are building your startup. But through all that, somebody is whispering. So listen to the whisper. Thank you. I can take this out.
Yeah. Now, is it done? We've spent like very, very, very meaningful 1 hour, 1.5 hours. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Bagchi. I think just, and we've touched so many things, and I'm sure we've touched many lives here too. I'd just like to kind of summarize in many ways from your own book, Go Kiss the World. You said our vision is not always a function of our capability to see. It's our willingness to open our inner eye to the limitless universe that lights up the path of our existence. Thank you so much. It's just been outstanding to be part of this. Thank you so much. Big round of applause, please. Request our past president, Mr. Yashwant, to share some glimpse of what the CEO Club does and the initiatives under which we're operating.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Part of my duty today is to propose a word of thanks, but I have no words. Thank you. Instead of thanking Shraddha, I should be thanking President Rajesh, because he's the one who is instrumental in bringing you here. Otherwise, some of us are going to sit here and have a chat with Mr. Bagchi. It is a phenomenal transformation of a simple conversation. All right. Thank you very much for extracting the essence of the knowledge and wisdom of Mr. Bagchi. Thank you very much. May I request our lone women member of the CEOs Club Bangalore chapter to come and kindly honor. Her only, no? For only. Rajesh, if you may complete.
One for the table and the other one for the wall.
Thank you, Shraddha. Can anybody actually thank Mr. Bagchi?
Thank you so much.
Sir, I do not even pretend to put in words what we feel. The lucidity, the simplicity with which phenomenal, mind-boggling ideas are put across is what makes you different, what puts you in that pedestal. We are here to listen to you because it is easy to our ears and it goes into our brains. Sir, I have no further words, sir. Thank you very much for being, for opening your heart, for speaking from your gut, heart, brain, whatever is inside you, and reaching us through whatever openings we have had. Phenomenal. Thank you very much. May I request Dr. Sharan and Mahibai, please join Dr. Sharan in. Maybe we should hang this portrait in our club, not your house. this is the invitation we had sent out to our guests. Thank you. Now I stand between all of you and Scotch. So I'll just take precisely 2 minutes, like the President asked me to. What the CEO's Club is all about is providing a ecosystem, a platform for us to express ourselves the way we want to. It gives us a platform to be ourselves in the deepest sense of the word. It's a platform which stands on two clear pillars of non-judgmental communication and absolute watertight confidentiality. So what it does is it gives us the freedom to express ourselves. It gives us the openness to learn from each other. So it's not a business networking platform, but a learning platform. So we learn from sharing. We learn from sharing from inside. We learn from being open about it. All right. So, so that's basically what CEO's Club is all about. The mechanism is there on the website. You can also talk to us when we are outside. Please look out for people with the lapel pins. They are the members. Have deep conversations with all our members. Ask the stupidest and the deepest and the wrongest questions. And watch out for the tray. To conclude, this is not a business networking club, but it's a platform, a phenomenal platform, which gives you that freedom to express and the freedom to learn from anybody. The non-judgmental nature that it creates in us, what it does is it takes away the preconceived notions about the genders, the caste, the backgrounds of people, all the prejudices that we have within ourselves is what is broken with this platform of CEO's Club. That is what makes it phenomenal in being open and learning. That's what CEO's Club is all about. And to conclude on my other duty of thanking people, fantastic response to our invitation. I thank each one of the guests who have accepted our invitation and being here. Thank you very much. You made our day. Typically, CEO's Club is an inward-looking organization where we learn from each other, but it's members only. But once in a while, we open our doors to the guests who can come and experience what we have as a club in itself. So thank you very much for coming, for all the guests. Thank you to all our members who have shown up in, it's a full house today. Thank you very much. Thanks to all the members of the Spouses Inner Circle. And did I miss somebody? Lastly, and most importantly, I want to acknowledge the youth inner circle, the members of the youth inner circle of the Bangalore chapter, which are the children of the CEO's Club members who have stood and made things a lot more pleasant here today. Thank you very much. Just stand up, please, wherever you are. Just stand up and be acknowledged. All right, there you go. Thank you. And I'll let Rajesh finish the word of thanks with acknowledging the committee.
Thank you, Yash. And we're almost there. We're almost done. But the couple of important things I wanted to conclude this evening with. One, we have cocktails and we have dinner following the cocktails. So please stick around and enjoy the evening. And the idea is to spend maybe some time. If you get a chance to talk to Mr. Subrata Bakshi, please do spend some time with him. And all of the CEO Club members that are here, I highly encourage the guests to get to know us, get to know the CEO Club, and if you're interested in the club, we'll be more than willing to take you through the process. And one of the things I'm sure most CEOs here know what I'm talking about. It's so difficult to throw an event. And we all, in our own companies, throw a lot of events. It's always difficult. And it is nearly impossible to throw a great event, in-person event, during a pandemic. And you can imagine what passion, love, hard work that has gone into this event. And I would like to acknowledge the Counsel, which works along with me to make Bangalore chapter a great chapter of the CEO Clubs. I would like the Council members to stand up. If I could call Anup, Mahi, Rishabh, Sunil, Rajesh, Kutnikar, and of course our ex-president Yash. Please give them all a round of applause. And especially I would like to acknowledge one person among the council mainly, Mahi, and we all lovingly call him Mahi Bhai. He is the architect behind this entire event and has literally given up his day job and spent all his time on this. So thank you, Mahi. Thank you. So that's it. Good evening, everyone. Please enjoy the rest of the evening. Mr. Bakshi is going to be around. We have some spare books. If you did not bring one of your books that we sent you to the guests I'm speaking to, please come and ask one of us and we will try and get you a spare book. And if you would like to get that autographed by Mr. Bakshi, he has kindly agreed to do that. Please take advantage of that. Thank you all.
Sana.